In this video, we will see the stages that a bean goes through during its entire life cycle. So, the bean life cycle can be summarized as shown. The bean is first instantiated, then some initialization code, if there is any, is executed. Then the bean operations are executed, which means the methods that we call on a bean. Then, if there is some destruction code that we have specified, that will be executed and then the bean will be removed. This entire life cycle of a bean, which we create using Spring, is managed by the IOC container. So, there are these two important life cycle callback methods. One is init method and the other is destroy method. So init method is called for the initialization and destroy method is used for the destruction. The init method is called after the class constructor. So as soon as the class constructor is called, so as we have seen when the bean is being created, so the configuration file is read, and then if we are using setter injection, then the default constructor or the no argument constructor of the class will be called. And if we are using constructor injection, then some parameterized constructor of the class will be called. So the init method is called immediately after the constructor has been called. And the destroy method is called just before the bean is about to be removed from the container. So the syntax is we define these attributes init method and destroy method in the bean tag. So along with the class and the ID of the bean, we also specify the method which is going to act as the initialization method and the method which is going to act as the destruction method. So whatever code we want to be executed during initialization, for example, establishing some connection with the database or opening of some files, all of that initialization can be done in the init method. And to release those resources, like if we want to close the connection or if we had occupied a result set, then we want to close the result set, or closing some files that we had used for reading and writing. So all such code can be written in the destroy method. So we need to specify the name of the method here. So init m is the method name and finish m is the method name. So basically, any method can act as the initialization method and the destroy method. And also, for different beans, there can be different initialization and destroy methods. So you can have multiple methods in class student. And for bean ID PG1, we may say that init m and finish m is the init and destroy method. Whereas for let's say PG2, we can say that there is init m1 and finish m1, which are the init and destroy methods. So here in the student class, we define public methods. So this is init method. And here we will write some initialization code. In the same way, we will write another method, which is destroy method, and we will print here destroy method executed. In the same way, we will create some more methods. So let's say this is init method 2, this is destroy method 2. So here in the bean.xml, we have bean S1 and S2 of type student. And we also have bean A1 and A2, which is of type address, which is a referenced bean, which is referenced from S1 and S2 respectively. And we are specifying init method and destroy method for S1 to be init method and test method. And for S2, we have specified init method 2 and test method 2 to be the init and destroy method respectively. When we run this code, so as seen in the output, the init methods have been executed and then the beans have been displayed. But the destroy method, the output is not seen here because the beans have not been removed yet. So we'll make some changes to the code. We will close the context. So, okay, so because we have not used, because we have used application context here, it does not have the close method. So we'll use a configurable application context, which has a close method. So when the context will call the close method, so all the beans will be removed. All the beans belonging to that context will be removed so that the destroy method will be called immediately before the beans are being removed. We'll print a line here which says closing the context. Also, we will add a print line to the constructor. So here we will student, and in the parameterized constructor, we will print that this is the parameterized constructor so that in the output we'll know which constructor exactly has been executed. Now when we run this file, so here we can see that first the student object or the student being using setter injection has been created. So the no argument constructor has been executed first, and then the init method has been executed. Then the second student bean, which is S2, that has been created using the parameterized constructor, and then the init method has been executed for that, which is init method 2. After that, we are just printing the bean. So here we can call any methods which belong to the bean. So let's say a student has some method like calculate CGPA or calculate average. So we can call all those methods here in between. And after we are done with using the bean, so when we close the context, the beans will be removed. But before the beans are removed, the destroy method will be called. And so here, as you can see, the destroy methods have been called, and then the beans have been removed. These are the four scopes to which a Spring Bean can belong. It can be singleton, prototype, request, and session. These two scopes, which is request and session, they are scopes for a Spring Bean which belongs to a web application. So if we are creating a web application using Spring, then we can define the scope of our bean to be HTTP request or HTTP session. So this scope is the same that we have seen in JSPs or servlets. That is, if we say that a bean has request scope, then it means that it will be valid only for a given request. So until the request has been served, so until the response has been sent, the bean will be valid, and after that the bean definition will go out of scope. Same goes for session. So we are if a bean has been created in a given HTTP session, then it will be valid for the complete session for multiple requests and responses as well. But as soon as the bean is accessed from somewhere outside the current HTTP session, so let's say a new session is created and the bean is accessed from a new session, then this bean will not be valid in that session. We will be seeing singleton and prototype beans only, since we are working with a standalone Java application and we are not working with web applications for now. So what do we mean by a singleton bean? A singleton bean means that the uh, it will allow only one instance of that bean in a single IOC container. So for a given IOC container, for a given Spring container, there will exist only a single instance for the given bean definition. Whereas a prototype means that the bean definition that we have written in our configuration, it can have any number of object instances. So holding that as a prototype, there will be multiple instances that will be created which are same as the bean that we have defined. So by default, all beans that we create are singleton beans. That is exactly one copy will be created. That is one object will be created, and this copy is stored in a cache. And whenever we request, say, or whenever we send a request for that bean, so whenever we call the get bean method, it is going to return the same copy, the same cached object that was created. And because it is only created once, so the constructor and the other method will not be called every time. It is only called once, and whenever we use the getBean method, the object is simply returned. But in case of prototype, the container is going to create a new instance every time we make a request. So every time we call the getBean method, it is going to create a new instance of that bean, and it is going to return the object ID of that new instance every time. So we'll see a demo for this. So in our main code, we will only create a single bean, and we will try to get it, call the get method. So we will try to request that bean multiple times from our main code. So we'll just write for loop where I is 3, and here so let us just comment out the toString method. So let's say we are working with address, we just comment out the toString method so that our code will print the object ID. So when we say context dot get bean and we pass the ID of that bean, we will not be printing the toString method of our object. We will simply be printing the object ID that we get in return. And we are doing this 3 times for the same bean. So in the beans.xml, we will comment everything out. And here we only have one bean now, which is A1. And for the scope, so we'll say scope is equal to singleton. So when we run this code, so here as you can see, it has only one bean and we are printing that one bean 3 times. So here you can see that the object ID is being printed, and it says that the object ID is this, which is the same for all 3 beans, which means that all these 3 objects are the same object. They contain the same object ID, which means they are pointing to the same memory. You can also try not writing the scope here. So by default, since a bean is a singleton in Spring. So here you will see the same output. So now if we try to keep the scope prototype and run the code again. So now as you can see, the object is of type address. So all these three objects are of type address, but the object ID is different in all three cases, which means that it has created a new object every time that we have called the get method. So this get method, which is requesting the bean from the context, it is actually calling the constructor every time because we have set the scope to be prototype. So keeping this as the template, there are three objects which contain the same data which we can use in our application. Now, Spring by default uses eager loading or eager instantiation of beans, which means that all the beans that are present in the configuration file, they are instantiated as soon as the Spring configuration file is loaded. So as soon as we create the context object, that is when we are instantiating a new class path XML application context object, the XML file is loaded, and as soon as it is loaded, all the beans will be automatically instantiated. So that is called eager instantiation. The only exception to this is when we are using prototype beans, because we do not know how many times a prototype bean might be requested. So uh, that is why prototype beans are not instantiated eagerly, but all other beans, all singleton beans, are instantiated immediately. So in the given code, where we are creating an object of class path XML application context, so we are loading the beans.xml. So what happens is all singleton beans which are present in this beans.xml, they are instantiated by the IOC container as soon as this line is executed. So it does not wait for the getBean method to be called. They will be, all the objects will be automatically instantiated. So all constructors and setters will be called and the beans will be ready to use. And when the second line, which is when we are actually requesting the bean E1 from the context, at that time, it is only going to return the instance which is already created and it is present in the cache. So it is only going to return this available object to our Java code. So because of eager initialization, this code works very fast. So the calling of the constructor or setting of all the data members, this is not done at line number 2 because it is already done here. The code is very fast. That is why eager initialization is very useful. But there can be cases wherein you do not want uh, the beans to be instantiated all at once, or you do not want, maybe there is some case wherein you might not even need a bean, you might not even need a object to be used. So maybe you have written some conditional block like if some condition then get bean, otherwise do not do anything. So in such cases wherein you might not require beans, in those cases it might become an overhead that we are creating the bean at the startup as startup itself and we are not using it. In such cases, we can use lazy initialization. So a bean will be loaded only when the instance of that Java class is requested. Otherwise, it will not be loaded. So to configure a bean to be loaded using lazy initialization method, there is an attribute called lazy init, which belongs to the bean tag, and we have to set it to true. So when we say lazy init is equal to true, the bean will not be instantiated at the start. So whenever the configuration file is loaded, the bean will not be instantiated at that time, but it will be instantiated whenever there is the first call to the get bean method. So whenever we are requesting the bean for the first time, at that time the bean will be instantiated. By default it is false. That is why, as we saw, that by default all beans will be instantiated eagerly. Also, this attribute will not be inherited by the child beans. So if we have specified that some bean has a parent X, and if the parent X is configured to be initialized lazily, then we'll have to specify that the child also needs to be lazily initialized. Otherwise, by default, the lazy init attribute for the child will be false. So in our code, we will just comment this out. So we are just printing all the beans which are contained in our beans.xml. So we are printing the bean name and we are printing the bean object. And also we have commented out the constructor, the toString method of the classes. So that is why the object IDs will be printed. And since we are using address, so we will also print a line here which says that the constructor is being executed. So in the beans.xml, we have these address beans A1, A2. So A1 is of scope prototype and A2 is of singleton scope. Similarly, S1 and S2, where S1 is of scope prototype and S2 is of singleton scope. So we have not specified anything here. And S1, S2 also have init and destroy methods. Now, when we execute this code, so basically we are just trying to get all the beans and print all beans once. So now, as we can see here in the output, the constructor for address, the parameterized constructor has been executed, which means that out of all these beans, the bean A2, so this bean A2 has been created, instantiated as soon as we have loaded the context. So as soon as we have loaded the beans.xml, A2 has been created first, and then in the next line, student object which is using constructor injection has been instantiated. So this S2 is that student object which uses constructor injection. So from this, we can say that because these are singleton beans, they are by default loaded eagerly. And then here we can see that the init method 2 has been executed. So init method 2 is the initialization method of S2. That is why as soon as the constructor of S2 has been called, the init method was called immediately after it. Then we are printing the beans that are contained in our file. So we are printing A1, and as soon as A1 uh, we send a request for A1. So as soon as get bean A1 is called, the address constructor, so A1 has been instantiated now. So this constructor has been called for A1. Since it is using setter injection, the no argument constructor has been called, and after that the setter methods of address will be called, and then we get the object ID. So this is the object ID. So since this is a prototype bean, it was not instantiated at the beginning, and it is instantiated when the request to get bean has been made. Then we are printing A2. So as you can see here, since A2 was created in the beginning itself, that is why immediately as soon as there is a request for A2, the object ID is being printed here. And then for S1, because the S1 object was called here, so as you can see, because S1 is of scope prototype, so it will be instantiated whenever there will be the first request for that method. So here you can see that student constructor has been called, and then since the student constructor uses an object of type address which is A1, so it will see that A1 is of type prototype, scope prototype. And since it is of scope prototype, it is again creating an object of type A1, or you can say an object of type address, which is the same as A1. So since A1 is prototype, this address object is being created again. So A1 is already created, and then there is another instance of A1 which is created here so that it can be set for the student S1. And then the init method is executed immediately after the constructor. So as soon as the student constructor is finished, the init method for S1 is being executed here, and then the student object is being printed. Similarly, for S2, since the object was already created and it is a singleton object, it is simply going to return the same object ID. So now we just make one change, which is we set the lazy init attribute of the bean S2 to true. So now this bean S2, which was earlier being initialized at the startup as soon as the beans.xml was being loaded, now it will not be initialized eagerly. It will be lazily initialized, which means that it will be instantiated only when there is a call to get bean S2. So when we run this code in the output, so here as we can see address, so A2, which is using constructor injection, has been created instantly, but the student bean, which was first being created here itself as soon as the address bean was created, now it is being created here. So as you can see, uh, after printing S2, the student constructor has been called, and then the init method is executed, and then the student ID is printed here. So since even though S2 is a singleton bean, because we have set lazy init to be true, it will create the bean only when we call it. But now if we call this method for the second time, then there will be no calling of constructor because it is a singleton bean. It will only be created once. So you can try it here. Let's say we call S2 again and run this code. So here in this case, as you can see, since it is a singleton bean, S2 has been initialized lazily, but when there was a call to the second call to get bean S2, it has immediately fetched the bean and printed it here.